spine like an arrow, arrow to the sun. We rose up from the slums, heroes journey on as heralds of the one. I can play any role, I can play the fool. I am the magician, so I'm bending all the rules. The high priestess of the moon, where the east is. The empress Venus, the door to the deepness, seen as the emperor.
Hey, bonjour. I got a special guest, and hope you guys like that song, that track, Illuminati Congo, which I also included in a recent mix I did called Alchemical Elementals. And it's got some spicy instrumentals and lyrics coming off the dentals. But yeah, Sid Roc. I got this brother in the house here to talk about some tarot, and hailing from Montreal, or Montreal, as they would say in French, I suppose. We're gonna keep it in English, but yeah, I love to throw in a little franglais all day. So yeah, what you got to say?
I was born and raised in Montreal, so le franglais is my natural language.
Right?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, because I got to learn a little bit more as well. We kind of met through mutual friends, networking, and autonomy, One Great Work Network, Chris Jansen, Fred Gongra, Libercast. So yeah, brother.
The funny thing is, because first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the invite, and yeah, my name is Sydney. I'm the tarot guy next door is kind of the brand that kind of evolved organically as I was doing this shit. So I was I was gonna reflexively go into that, but to answer your question, the long and short of it is. Being born and raised in Quebec, I was a socialist for most of my life. And then around, I don't know, the early 2000s, I, discovered some material and became an ANCAP. And then I've since tempered my positions, but in the process, I discovered Mark Passio's work, and he got me into tarot. Which is very interesting that we ended up meeting through Mark Passio's work also about tarot. So it's a very interesting circle closing with that story. And yeah, I've been doing tarot for about 10 years, and only in the COVID era that I discovered that there's actual interest for this thing that I've been doing for years. So then I started making content about that, and I think that the essence of what I'm trying to do online, because of how difficult it is to say what I want to say, I've escaped into occult shit and comedy. Those are kind of my escapes. So I'm using tarot as a vessel for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel you. And it's one of those arts and sciences that ties into natural law and truth, and just self-discovery and evolution. These archetypes of consciousness, and it is one of those ways to kind of whisper the truth under the radar of this draconian fucking shit of since the dawning of the Rona, like you said. Like, holy smokes, some of our favorite YouTube channels are no longer here. What the hell, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's difficult to engage and not get discouraged by the state of things, because if no, not a lot of shade to the people who actually think this, but if I wanted to put myself out there and I thought that the only platforms that I had were like Rumble and Odyssey, I would it would be extremely discouraging to me. I think that access to the places where people actually are is important, and in order to survive in environments like that, you gotta be subtle, you gotta be clever, and that's how I do it.
Yeah. That struggle is real, and it does kind of suck, because it feels like we're kind of compromising to a degree just to have that access and reach these minds that need these things the most, more or less. Folks that are on the alternative media sites, they're more in line of that esoteric studies and truth seeking and all that stuff, and the ANCAPs or the whatever voluntarists, abolitionists, and for folks that don't understand, ANCAP means anarchist capitalist, right?
Yeah, anarcho-capitalist. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done anything in Anarchapulco?
I would have loved to go to Anarchapulco, but I haven't had the chance to go yet. And now in the post-COVID era, I don't even know what travel is going to evolve in. So I'm kind of hunkering down where I'm at and waiting to see. I forget how long my passport has before it expires, but yeah, it would be nice to update my ear tags, as I call them.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. I had a Canadian girlfriend like 2 years ago. It's kind of how I met Chris Jansen, because I was not able to enter into your country. I had a criminal record, and they never forget these things. And with the information that's shared between the FBI and the DOA in America in Canada, I don't know. They're big brothers in it together to kind of fuck over the person that just made mistakes in the past. And
Yeah,
I don't get, like they ruined my life in a sense, but we got to move on and all that stuff. But yeah,
that's really unfortunate.
no. But anyways, it's part of the hero's journey, right? We got to kind of get back up and have those new beginnings. And speaking of which, because yeah, I had to brush up on some things and just these things are. It's such a complex science and art, the tarot, because it ties in so many things. We got astrology, numerology, the Hermetica. Did I say numerology? Think about symbology, colors, how those correspond to, different things in the psyche, and just, how they're also interpreted through in symbology. And there could be some mythology involved, and maybe the runes tie in to a degree, and folks are tying in crystals, and kabala, of course, that's involved. And we can never forget the elements, because those are really key and integral into these things. So
yeah, the elements are kind of baked into all the other systems too. C'est incontournable, comme on dit, It's and what there were so many things in that. Oh, now I remember what you just reminded me of. Because speaking of the symbolism part, that was what drew me to tarot. So I glossed over I glossed over several years of my backstory, but to unpack some of it, when I was in my early anarcho-capitalist phase, I was also a pretty hardcore conspiracy theorist. And the aspect that attracted me the most was symbolism and secret societies specifically. I was obsessed with all that kind of symbolism. I was really fascinated with Freemasonry. And later on, when I realized that by the definition that I was using at the time for what a secret society is, which I'll share real quick, hierarchical access to information and internal jargon that's incomprehensible to outsiders. That's kind of all, that to me are the main elements. And along that journey, I realized that Scientology fits that. So I became obsessed with, I had a little Scientology research phase in that. But that was actually a red herring. To come back to what I was saying, when I listened to Mark Passio, he made me realize that a tarot deck is just a deck of cards full of symbols. And I've always been fascinated with playing cards. So when you tie playing cards with symbolism, the next weekend, I went into the first occult shop that I found and bought my first tarot deck. It was in French. I still have it. It's in that closet there. It bugs me to be in French. I'm a real purist, I'm an Aquarius, so I like to do shit. If I'm not doing it, if I'm not reinventing the wheel, I'm going to use the wheel that already existed. So it was very, I loved having the original Pamela Coleman Smith illustrations, but having, say, La Maison de Dieu instead of the tower, it really bugged me. So when I finally got my English classic deck and began my journey that way. But yeah, the symbolism in the tarot is the part that fascinates me the most, and it's the part that I read the most, because like you said, so many different occult schools can be tied into it, and for beginners it can be really overwhelming, and B, for seasoned tarot readers, you end up kind of just picking your lanes that you like, and focusing on those. And it's not that the other shit doesn't exist, but I don't give I don't give a fuck about crystals. I use them in my practice. I have a little pouch of, I don't have my little pouch of crystals in my pocket because I forgot to put it in my pocket this morning. But I don't care which what tarot card amethyst corresponds to, you know. But that because I'm looking at the part of the major arcana in the background behind us right now, and like that the magician is associated with number one. That kind of stuff really fascinates me, and that he has all four elements on the table in front of him, and that kind of stuff, you know. But that he's tied to Mercury, like, yeah, it's a fun fact, but I don't use Mercury a lot when I read The Magician, you know.
Yeah, interesting, because yeah, I've heard how Odin is tied to Mercury, and Odin being the magician and all that. And I've also heard something very intriguing, and it actually makes sense, especially how it was said. I don't know if you're familiar with the Seth Esposa of Black Earth Productions.
No, unfortunately.
Okay, he's in the One Great Work Network, actually, and it was actually him who created the design of the the sigil with the Mayat and all that. What do we got? Put that right there. Hard to see, but you know what I mean.
Oh, so, the One Great logo.
Yeah.
He did that.
Yeah.
That's some great work. Holy shit.
Okay,
From multi-year symbology geek, I would feel so proud if I was behind that logo. Holy shit. Good job. Yeah.
So anyways, what he, and you could check it out, he put out a video, the first three gates of the tarot, I believe it's called. He said that the high priestess is actually supposed to come before the magician. And the way he put it was kind of like, hey, you have to enter through the gates of wisdom and be balanced to even, wield any of these elements, to pick them up off the table and use them properly, type of thing. So I found that quite interesting. And yeah, it kind of makes sense, the gate, the woman, the birth canal, giving birth to, I guess, if you will, the mage on the stage, right?
And it would be a pretty graceful follow to the fool jumping off the cliff, because when you jump off the cliff, you go through the gate, which is, trusting that you'll either fly or be okay once you hit the bottom or whatever. So yeah, that's really, I had never heard that, but it does make sense. In the argument holds up, is what I'm saying.
Right on, yeah. And might as well go back to this last one, because he also mentioned what what these flowers, lilies represent, type of thing. And you see him being a little too curious, as we are when we're children, and apparently it's the left and right sides of divide and conquer, domination and control. And because obviously, controlled opposition, they'll play both parts. And so he gets the lily, he and sniffs it and kind of gets blissed out. And so he's just tra-la-la and just like walking off a cliff, while his companion, the white dog, the white wolf, is like, hey, man, you're walking off a fucking cliff, And then and I find it interesting. And if you want to just mention something like that, I got a follow-up comment question for you, too.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. As far as symbolism goes, flowers is not my expertise. I don't I'm not very well versed on what flower is associated with what. I go mainly by the colors that I'm more familiar with. So the lily is white, so there's that purity there. And I guess, tying it into what you were saying, the being spaced out by after sniffing the lily, the white can be associated with that that pure potential, like a blank page that you get, zeroed out, and the major arcana card number 0. Wow, I said that like organically, but it that does track, and it's the same color as the dog, who would be of that world, so to speak, through the color. So yeah, I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I love what you said. That thank you. Yeah, I guess my follow up would be because, and this just came to mind organically earlier thinking about this, because this is like a motif in TV series and movies and stuff, and Tintin, right, with his dog Snowy. That was like the one thing that came to mind, and it just clicked. Like, damn, they're always on these journeys and this and that, and it's like him and the white dog. Like,
Yeah, for
pretty
sure.
cool, man. I'm wondering, like, do you think there's been actual influence of the tarot in this archetype to some of these stories or whatever?
Well, because I read Tintin when I was young, so I'm quite familiar with that lore. Or well, I haven't read it in many decades, but I read it growing up. So yeah, the traveling around the world with a white dog, and he did often end up falling into weird situations and figuring his way out of them. He I forget how he ended up in space with the DuPont brothers, but the that stuff is it and it's in space. Where do you go when you're high? You fly, and you enter a different plane. I can totally see the parallels between the entire mythos of Tintin and the Fool itself, and the entire tarot is called the Fool's Journey. So yeah, it's very it's very weird and powerful. Yeah, I like it.
Oh man, that was cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, I used to read Tintin as well, and apparently it's not that popular amongst Americans like it is in Canada. And even worse is Asterix, Obelisk. In Americans don't know about that, but you guys definitely do, right? And,
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure the extent to which Asterix is a Canada thing or a Quebec thing,
oh yeah,
because I know that the Gauls in their tiny little enclave surrounded by the Roman Empire, that resonates very strongly with the Quebec sentiment, because Quebec has a very strong separatist movement,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Quebec is like that little island of French speakers surrounded by Anglophones in the rest of the country. So that is like such the I I can't imagine how many millions of Quebecers, when they see that the Asterix map with the little wooden fence around the Gallic enclave there, who just imagine the shape of Quebec when they see that map, for sure, for sure.
Oh wow, yeah, man. And didn't they have a little dog too? And
I didn't read Asterix anywhere near as much as I read Tintin, but yeah,
likewise, man.
I have vague memories of a white dog. Yeah.
Get a fix, man. But no, that was someone else. But I think the wizard. Yeah. So obviously, we're looking at the rider-waite tarot deck. I was kind of curious as to what your favorite deck is, what you like to use, and all that.
Well, I'm a purist, so I really like the original Pamela Coleman Smith imitations. The I have a bunch of tarot decks, but it's mainly for aesthetic reasons, and also because when the bread and butter of my content creation practice, let's call it, is weekly pick a card videos that I publish on YouTube, and also a weekly live stream that I do on TikTok. And for those, for pick a cards, you need more than one deck. So right there, I had to buy some. And also, most of the people watching these are women, and they like pretty things. So I figure, you know what? They like it, and if I like the deck, I'll obviously buy it. But now that I'm thinking of all the decks that I have a really strong tie to the Lightseers Tarot. There's something about that deck, the illustrations. There's something really wholesome about them, and yeah, if I don't know if you want me, I can go grab my Lightseers and show you a couple. Okay, good. I'll be right back.
It's your responsibility to conquer your suspicions and see what's right in front of you despite predispositions.
Let me separate the major arcana out.
Sure, yeah. And while you're doing that,
Yeah.
the deck that you first acquired, I forget the author's name, but is that the Marseille deck?
No, the Pamela Coleman Smith. She illustrated the regular deck, the Rider-Waite Smith deck. She's the Smith in
Yeah.
Rider-Waite Smith.
Yeah, fuck.
But actually, I don't want to take too much time separating these cards, but I picked the first couple major arcana cards that I found, and like just even the devil here, the representation here. First of all, what a dude, you know, what a dude to put as a temptation of the devil.
It looks like Pan, right?
Huh?
It looks like Pan in a sense, like a human version.
I'll take your word for it. I don't know enough about Pan, but he's very dreamy, and it's very tempting to stick around, you know, if you're into guys. And the Coleman Smith about being bound to the block is kind of alluded to with the little spirit on the puppet strings that he's holding here. Little things like that, and like death here, the card of transformation. It's literally a portal, a guy in a cloak, and his face is a portal to another world. There's so many great illustrations like this in this deck. It is packed, and the Empress pregnant with the earth, you know. So many strong illustrations like Temperance here, with the sun and moon exchanging energy between them, and he still has the angel wings. I'm not. I call these pretty decks for all the reasons I mentioned. But of the pretty decks that I have, the Lightseers, there's something really, like I said, wholesome, and yet still honors the original material in ways that are really clever. I fucking love that deck, really.
Cool, yeah, and I definitely respect a lot of, you know, variants of the original deck, but kind of stay true to the symbolism and that kind of stuff for sure. And one of the things that I'm not the biggest fan of in regards to, you know, the Rider-Waite, and this is also keeping in mind that, you know, we got when we see these, you know, cards and all that, we really have to see it like almost like with just some your symbol filters on for like every little detail, everything. So even if, you know, they're talking about a queen, the empress, or a king and all that stuff, and yeah, it kind of harkens back to, I mean, this is, you know, created during these, you know, times where there were the monarchies and all that stuff. And so I see the empress, and she's just like the queen on her throne and this and that. She has her subjects before her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, yeah, can't get hung up on that, because remember, it's just an archetype of, you know, human consciousness.
Yes.
But, you know, they take it further with this deck. I really like that with the, you know, the mother womb and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I'm extremely, like I said, I'm very nitpicky and I'm very strict and I love to do it by the book. So any pretty deck that I actually end up spending money for and getting, I've watched a flip through. I've seen all 78 cards. And you better have a good temperance. If I don't like the temperance in your deck, I'm not getting your deck. Period. And the other thing is you need to. I like to, if you're gonna reskin the Rider-Waite Smith, you need to communicate it to me in a way that I appreciate. Those are like the things that I consider when I buy a pretty deck. Because again, if it was up to me, I would just use the standard Rider-Waite Smith, the standard Marseille deck, and maybe the standard Crowley deck if I was willing to read for others with that deck. I only read for myself with the Crowley deck.
That's cool. And I guess you don't have much of a problem with the radiant version of Rider-Waite.
No, of course.
Okay,
Like when I say reskinning, like you're literally taking
Yeah.
the original and you're kind of changing the color palette a little. That's totally fine. I have a couple of those. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, cool. I used to have, and I, gifted it to a really good friend, Herbal Tarot.
Okay.
Do you have that one, or have you worked with that?
No, I've never heard of it. No.
Okay. No matter. I thought it was kind of interesting, and I didn't really understand or resonate with all their, herb and plant correspondences to every single card. But I found it fascinating, and you just learn things. It's awesome, and people want to interpret, their way of, seeing the tarot in these cards. I mean, that's fine. It might not be for everyone, right? So, yeah, you mentioned temperance, man, and it's funny because I was thinking about this when I was writing some questions down for you the other day, and it came to mind. I was thinking well, because I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite tarot card in the major arcana, but also in the minor? And I was thinking damn, temperance. That's up there. That's definitely in my top 5 of.
Oh, temperance is my favorite card. Yeah, that's it's the card that I was drawn to from the start, even when Mark Passio was doing the thing with the macrocosmic and microcosmic tree of life. That's what got me into tarot. I listened to that the week before I got my first tarot deck, basically. And yeah. But in the minors, that's a really interesting restriction because so many people focus on the majors with good cause. It's the major arcana. It's the upper tier. That's fine, but the day-to-day shit is important in life too. Wow, what would be my favorite? You know what? I'm gonna cop out and just say Six of Wands. It's a nice little celebration, crowning a victory. In the real world, not necessarily like the whole chariot of the upper management success versus employee success. I love me a good Six of Wands.
That's funny because I didn't really give enough thought about it, but when I thought about it for myself, I was thinking about the Eight of Wands, just because I have a lot of fire in my makeup and all that, and it's just wow, that energy. It's whoa.
Yeah, it's a dynamic one for sure. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So what do you find when you, because you mentioned earlier that even pre-recording, I believe, that you're in some groups that you talk about tarot and stuff. What do you find that because like you said, there's so many different things tying into this, and to have, it's hard enough to master one of these arts that correspond with it, and it's another just to at least have a wide open mind of all these things. What do you find that people get hung up the most with tarot? Or people, it doesn't have to be the most, but in general or whatever.
Well, when you asked that, my first reflex was to think of someone who wanted to learn tarot, and the thing that people often, they get intimidated by having to memorize a bunch of card meanings. and also the court cards, which are extremely intimidating, with good reason, in the sense that even me, 10 years after, beginning this tarot journey, the card that I'm least happy with how I read it is a court card, specifically the Queen of Coins. The Queen of Coins is my 78th card. It's the card that I'm least happy with how I read it. Yeah, the court cards, you're right to be intimidated by them, but they're part, people are part of life too. So you need to master that. Well, at least be familiar with it. Actually, that ties into something. You don't need to be perfect. That is really important. But I know that, like, segueing into something else a bit, because when people say I could talk about this card for an hour, that's basically always true. You can take any one of those cards, and if you know enough about them, you can talk about them for an hour easily and not really loop back on anything, except maybe major themes. Like if I had to do a 1 hour presentation about any ace, I would probably say the word new a lot. Yes. Or potential. I'd probably say that a lot. But even the aces, which is just a fucking hand holding a sword or a coin or whatever, yeah, you could probably talk about that for an hour. And the challenge that I really enjoy when I read tarot is choosing what to focus on. What is this card adding to this reading for this person? Because again, circling back to what I was saying earlier with the magician, the people that I read for, whenever the magician comes up, they rarely ever need to hear about Mercury. But hearing about how, you need to channel and initiate and drive it with your will, with in a balanced way, that often comes up, and that's the challenge that I enjoy. Yeah. And the funny thing is, so many tarot readers, I hate how they read, in the sense that it's like instead of giving a 3-card reading, you're giving me 3 1-card readings. And you're not even giving me 3 1-card readings. You're giving me 3 presentations about the card. But none of it has to do with what I can use in my life, and when you don't know how to read tarot and you see readers like that, it makes it even more intimidating to even begin the practice, which I think is unfortunate.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Like even a lot of these subjects, esoterically speaking, that people don't hear like how it applies to them personally. It already kind of goes over their head, but then it's really hard for them to latch on to any kind of interest sometimes, because it's almost like a different language, right? Yeah.
It is a different language. That's exactly it. Yeah. And knowing how a tarot reader is basically a translator. You're taking the question, you're bringing it up into the archetypal world, and then you're picking cards, and then the archetypes that answer your question, now you got to translate that down to English or whatever language you're speaking that will answer the question that was asked to you. Yeah, it's absolutely that. And it's funny, I was thinking last night about, because the bread and butter of what I do is 3-card open readings. I just throw down 3 cards, no positions, it's just 3 cards. Obviously, the middle card is going to be in the middle, so there's that inherent importance. But I just throw down 3 cards, and the reason I love that so much is because and this ties kind of into geometry. Geometry is part of my background as well. But with one data point, you have a point. With 2 data points, you can draw a line. But with 3, you can have a plane. And when I do a 3-card open reading, I'm kind of throwing up 3 points, and then I'm kind of exploring the plane that these points make, and I'm trying to figure out what on this plane would be helpful for the person I'm reading for. I really love that navigation.
Yeah, it sounds like a beautiful creative canvas that you're concocting, man.
Yeah,
like
it's a very creative practice to read tarot, absolutely, because you're telling a story ultimately. All tarot readings are stories. I would be it would be difficult for me to think of a way to read tarot that isn't just telling a story. And hopefully the story is helpful to the person you're reading for, you know?
Right, and that they don't, misread or like overanalyze certain things, because you see a lot of people like they get the death card or the tower card and like, oh my god, my world's gonna flip upside down and all this stuff. And for those that are kind of just like confident in themselves and understand like change is inevitable, it's like I actually like the tower card. It's like, okay, where are we going, or like
Mm-hmm.
what needs to change, because we can always improve and evolve from where we're at, type of thing. So yeah.
Something that I like pointing out about the tower card specifically, because I would say the tower card is probably the scariest card to people who know tarot, and that is correct. I would say when you actually know what all 78 cards mean, the tower is probably the one that I would be the least happy to see for most readings. But something I like to point out about the tower is that there are actually 3 characters in that card. They're the 2 guys that are falling out of the tower. There's also the lightning bolt, and sometimes you're the lightning. Sometimes the person reading is the one knocking the crown off of the tower to crumble shit down. But yeah, sometimes you get towered and you're the one who has to jump out a window and hope for the best, you know?
Oh wow, yeah, I never read about that, of the lightning being a factor and how it can relate. And as far as like the reversal of that, how do you see the reversal of, let's just stick with the tower, I guess?
Well, to answer that, I'd have to talk about how I read reversals in general,
Yeah, sure.
because a lot some tarot readers they like to change the meaning of a card when it's reversed. That's not what I do. The cards mean the same thing whether they're upright or reversed, but the fact that it's reversed is kind of an extra thing to consider, and it's kind of a block, glitch, or delay, or corruption of that energy. That's kind of how I read reversals in general. So in applying to the tower, it would depend a lot on the situation, but if I read the tower reversed, it's either a particularly nasty tower moment or a tower moment that you're ready for. In some situations, the reversal alleviates the dynamism of the tower, and in some situations, it exacerbates it. So yeah, it really depends. But yeah, that's how I would read it.
Wow, I love that response, man. Thank you. So you give readings,
Mhm.
right? You offer services. Do you have a website?
I don't have a website yet. I made a landing page that like centralizes everything, but it's not hosted on a proper website.
Right on. You
That
got
is
like a link
something.
tree or something, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Cool,
kind
cool.
of a link tree on steroids that I put there, and I also yes, I offer readings, and I have a beginner's tarot course, and what else? Yeah, and basically all my social media and the Space Vibes sketch horoscopes that I've been doing for a while are there too. That was the main motivation for finding a solution, because I wanted a place where the pictures could be stored and people could just find them, which is very difficult to do on social media or without an actual website, you know?
Yeah, definitely, and that will be linked up into the show notes for sure. Sorry, I didn't have a QR code queued up for that. So.
That's fine. I could probably generate a QR code too. Yeah.
Word. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have a Bitly link, and I have a QR code for the Bitly link for my landing page. Yeah, for sure. I can send that to you actually.
Word. Yeah. Please do. Yeah. So, learning about the tarot and actually feeling confident in being able to, give readings to other people. What were some of the challenges and hardest aspects of that?
That is such a great question. Wow. So when you like I mentioned before, the real intimidating part for new tarot readers is learning all the card meanings. And I think that the challenge of that is to kind of give yourself permission to read for other people even before you've memorized all 78 card meanings. And even using the term memorize meanings, that's not exactly it, but to like really integrate them so that you can read them and apply the card to the actual situation. That's the real rubber meets the road stuff. And it's difficult to apply a card to a question if you don't know what it means. And I would say just swallow your pride and have a reference, because the first couple times that you read tarot, you're probably going to tell the person that you're a beginner. And yeah, it doesn't really look good to turn over a card and then open a book and look at the meaning and like kind of think out loud. But that's how you learn. And it's by doing that over and over again. Coming back to the translation thing, if sometimes you just need your French English dictionary to look up the meaning of a word, and by looking up the same word over and over again and seeing the translation, that's when it kind of sticks. And when you're applying it to a real person who asks you a real question, that's when the nuances of the card can kind of shine through in different situations. Because again, the tower, like I said before, it doesn't always mean the same thing. Yeah, there's a lot of dynamism and crumbling. There'll always be that aspect for sure. But what's moving fast and what's crumbling, that'll depend. And it's through it's only through experience that you can learn that. You can't learn that through a book. By reading a fucking 5,000 word essay on the Tower of the Magician, yeah, you'll have a lot of facts and shit. You might know what crystals it's associated with, or what sign or planet that it's associated with, or what I Ching hexagram it's associated with. But how's this going to help Dennis, who's wondering what to do about his abusive boss or whatever? That's what the real work is. When you read for people, yeah.
Yeah, real talk with that real work to apply in the real world. I love it. And it's like that streetwise spirituality. It's not this, airy-fairy divination thing and this and that. And like, even out here in France, last year I was working in a restaurant where there'd be a young woman that would come out and, have her little stand to do tarot readings throughout the day. And like, there's a lot of people, and I would be, either serving folks or behind the bar. I'm like, hey, you guys checking out that tarot? That's really cool. You can learn a lot about yourself and just even your simple life situation at the moment or whatever. It depends on what your intentions are and energy going into these things are, and people need to kind of hush down expectations, especially if they're not too familiar with these things, right? So, yeah, and like especially if it's not that expensive. I don't know why people are so hesitant sometimes.
Well, hesitant to consult or hesitant to learn. I lost track of which one you.
Oh, sorry. I guess to learn, because people are coming by the restaurant all the time, and she's there, and I'm like, hey, check and they're like, oh, I don't know, and this and that.
There's a lot of. A lot of people were raised religiously, I'll put it that way. And a lot of those Abrahamic books have, you know, warnings about how dangerous, you know, fortune telling is.
And
So
astrology and all that. Ooh,
yes, all
boogeyman
of it.
shit. Like what?
Exactly. Yes, that's God's job. And you're totally not God. All right. You leave that stuff to God and you stay out of it. So yeah, that is, it's a very, um, it's a widespread belief in a lot of people, even if they're no longer religious as adults. That, you know, when you grow up, like I was baptized, I did my confirmation, the first communion, all that stuff. So I had to go through a process before I could even open up to that stuff. So I can totally get how other people, you know, wouldn't necessarily have gone through it at that point. And before I forget to mention it, there's something in your story that reminded me. This is something that I'd eventually like to get into, to you know, set up a table, or you know, to just have a relationship with some coffee shop or whatever, where I could just go to it and read a book and have a little card stand that says, hey, if you want a tarot reading, you can sit down and I'll read for you. That is definitely something that I've been wanting to get into, but you know, so many things to do that I haven't gotten around to it yet. But yeah, I would really like to do that. And like, you know, just read. Worst case scenario, I just read for an hour or two and go home, and that's it, you know?
Hell yeah. And yeah, like she has her, you know, incense going on, and sometimes, you know, little the crystals and stuff, and yeah, brushing up for this conversation, looking at more stuff that I don't normally do, and realizing like, oh, like, you know, you can people cleanse their decks and all that stuff, or whether by crystal or, you know, using all the elements, smoke, incense, and all that stuff, even sunlight, moonlight. Do you have a specific technique, or are you just kind of like, just shuffle it around and the old-fashioned way type of thing? And you got
Yeah,
magic hands, anyways, you know. So.
it is specifically that, yes, because I don't really do any of that purging your deck or cleansing it and or that kind of stuff. But when I'm talking to people who do, and this is kind of the truth, I purge my deck. I cleanse my deck by shuffling it. That's how I cleanse it or purge it or whatever. So when you say that I have the magic hands, that is kind of it, because and that's also why I don't mind when other people touch my cards. I know a lot of readers are finicky about that, and I absolutely respect that, and I get it. And you know, if that's how you want to do your practice, that's fine. But with my practice and my beliefs, it's just cards. Like I do believe in the hippy dippy woo woo shit. I do. But when I'm reading tarot, there's a very down to earthedness that I bring to it. And for me, yes, there's spiritual meanings to it, but they're just pieces of paper with ink on them. So, you know, wash your hands. That's all I ask. Wash your hands. But besides that, if your hands are clean, yeah, sure, you can touch my cards. And again, all I have to do is shuffle them a bunch, and my deck will be fine, quote unquote.
Yeah, I like that, man. Keeping it down to earth and all that good stuff. So
yeah.
Sorry, go.
That's why I love the Tarot Guy Next Door brand. That it's actually a friend who called me something very similar, and then I kind of reworded it, because when I record my pick a card readings, I record them in my kitchen, and my kitchen is next to the hallway, and I sometimes hear my neighbors arriving or leaving, and sometimes I wonder if they can hear me reading. So the Tarot Guy Next Door kind of comes from that specifically, and it has that down to earth thing, like, hey, just go over there. So yeah. Plus, I like to tell it like it is and be abrasive, you know.
Fuck yeah, yeah. The world needs more of that, and not kind of curtailing their language just because they're worried about offending, someone that hasn't, I don't know, developed just, it's not even that thick of a skin, just to hear a little catharsis, or that real talk, telling it like it is, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
We live in a harsh reality, unfortunately, and there's a lot of harsh truths that people need to understand, digest, and yeah, like you mentioned, the integration is so key, and especially when that helps with being able to do the readings, and you have that intuitive intelligence guide you through that as well. And yeah, I've had readings from people, whether it be astrology or whatnot, and they have their references to their side, and it's like, that's cool, honestly. If they need that and it's going to be more accurate for my sake, yeah, it's all to the good.
Yeah, for sure. And like I would I would understand if someone wasn't comfortable getting a reading from someone who needed a reference, but the people who are, and especially, they're probably going to get help anyway. Like even a bad tarot reading is surprisingly helpful, surprisingly often. Even if I just flipped over 3 cards and I said, oh, Mercury, Cancer, Venus, and that was it. The communication with the home and hearth, and maybe relationships and luxury and lovey-dovey stuff, maybe that is what I need more of, or whatever. It's still better than nothing. So if you can get even if your friend needs a book to know what the meanings are, first of all, that's how your friend will eventually no longer need the training wheels. And second of all, you might still get something useful.
Yeah, true. I love that. And we, just like in life, we learn from our mistakes, and we could take if we're discerning, is this true or false or whatever, like the apophatic inquiry and all that jazz, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it's like when we're trying to teach things as well, we're also learning to a degree at the same time. And yeah, I love how I can just tell, we haven't really had much correspondence, but quite a humble guy, and you got some great compassion, it seems, and inner and understanding, and very approachable. I feel, that's tight.
Yeah, thanks. That's also part of why I like the Tarot Guy Next Door brand. It fits so well for all of those reasons. And yeah.
Oh yeah, so we're getting close to an hour. I'm down to chat for however long. Obviously, this is such a vast subject, but is there anything? Because I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, because it would be so cool, and it kind of came to mind when you were talking earlier. I forget the context, but creating. Oh yeah, like we could always talk for at least an hour on one single card for sure, and then some, right? But what hasn't been done yet, and what would be really cool, is to have like a television type of series about the tarot, and it goes through every episode is one card worth of it could be just be like half an hour to an hour even type of thing, because these things are kind of fast paced, and just and personifying just the situation of what that card represents and all that stuff.
I really like that idea, and you could totally do, like, there are people who use tarot. Well, I've done it. Who use tarot as inspiration for their art. Like they'll pull a card and then use the card as inspiration to make something. So that idea, I love it. The downside of it that always annoys me a little is that there are 78 cards, so. You either need to be willing to loop around forever, which is totally fine, or you're capping it at 78 episodes, which it's there's something dissatisfying about that, which is why my preferred choice would be to just loop around forever. So what? you can talk about the Justice card for an hour, so why not two? And people who see the second hour might not necessarily have seen the first hour, 78 episodes ago or whatever.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. It's a never-ending journey, pretty much.
It is, and that's even represented in the major arcana itself. Like not all readers think this, but there's a school of thought by which the fool and the person in the universe, the world, called the universe in some decks, I'm sure, but the fool and the lady in the world card are the same person. And it's actually the fool who's arrived and is ready to go back to the beginning, to jump off the cliff all over again. And it's also hinted at by the fool's tattered the sleeves. They're all fucked up and ripped and shit. Like he's been through this before. The loop is it's very, very present in the tarot, you know.
Yeah, it's such a just taking a step back and thinking about it all. I don't know how people cannot be in awe of just like the amount of consideration of everything involved in this art, and every single card, every detail, every color. Wow.
I cannot. It blows my mind when I think of the genius that Pamela Coleman Smith had when she illustrated that deck, and that's why I will call it the rider-waite Smith deck. Because you can't, like, I get, I'm pro-capitalism, I'm pro-free market. I get it how, you get a commission for a job. You might not get credit for the job. Your name might not even appear, but we know who illustrated those cards. Yeah, sure, the Rider Company might publish Waite's deck, but Smith drew that shit. And I'm giving her credit each and every time because holy shit, what genius work she did.
Wow, yeah, that's well said, and honestly, and I've heard this and thought about it as well. But you think about around that time, this is like a century ago at least, right? Was it created like in the
I think
1800s or early 19?
I think it was early 1900s. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
This is Golden Dawn shit.
Yeah, right.
Whenever the Order of the Golden Dawn, I think they were only active for like a decade or something like that. And I'm pretty sure it was in the early 1900s because Crowley was in that gang. So Crowley is 1900s.
Yeah, so during that time, like how many other females were, somewhat of a reference that people would think about today?
I honestly can't think of any besides
Blavatsky,
yeah,
and her, it seems, and like who else? Ayn Rand, that's later on, or that.
Shit. Now I feel really bad for forgetting her name because there's another one. There's another one. Not Smith, not Blavatsky, someone else. Or I might be confusing Blavatsky. Oh man, this is annoying me.
It's all good if you want to look it up.
I am. I'm not letting her slide.
Hey, you've taken autonomy, so you're efficient on that shit. I love that. Like already on it. So yeah, while you look that up, I'll just speak on it just because. Yeah, we know about the Manly P. Halls, Rudolf Steiner, and I feel like there were females that really had contributions, but they're not well known or kind of in the background, or kind of like what you mentioned of with Smith's situation of just not getting that notarization or whatever, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just a different time, and
yeah, exactly,
and all this stuff, and the printing press was completely different, and right,
and the relationship between men and women in society was different too. I mean, the feminists had a point, and in many ways they still do. But if you compare, how things were back then to how things were today. You know, the people who still bitch about race inequality today, they still have a point. But if you compare it to, you know, even as recently as 70 years ago, it's a completely different world. And yeah, that's kind of why it bugs me to not remember the name of this woman I'm trying to look up. But yeah, it's society evolves, and back in the early 1900s, you know, hey, this gypsy chick who grew our tarot deck, fuck her, fuck this bitch, and let's just publish our deck without her name, but she's the actual genius. Or, well, I don't know the extent to which Waite and her collaborated. I don't know what that process was like, because he was in the Golden Dawn, and you know, he was had a lot to do with it. But yeah, it was a completely different world.
Yeah, I feel you. And yeah, today's quite different. And kind of like what we mentioned real quick before the recording, of just how we see all types of influencers, TikTokers, and the whole nine, who are making a good amount of money off this stuff. And, you know, like, they got viral videos for things that you're talking about, yet it just seems like it's just like this watered down, commercialized, you know, feel to it. You know what I mean? They don't get, you know, deep below the surface as much as one really could, and one really should, if they're, you know, taking it seriously, as you are, right?
Yes. Actually, I'll get to this, because it bugs me even more that I forgot her name, now that I know that it's Marianne Lenormand. And the reason, she was a very famous cartomancer. I think she just did regular ass playing cards. But the reason it bugs me as much as it did that I couldn't remember Lenormand's name is, I have a Lenormand deck in the drawer of this desk here. The deck was not made by Lenormand, but she was such a huge influence on cartomancy and occult shit that the guy who made the Lenormand deck named it after her as dedication. And I forgot her name, so I'm glad I got to look up the name of the deck that's right in my drawer. But yeah, she's another big one.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so yeah, because, you know, we're kind of in the same boat. We're not getting a whole lot of views, and it just seems like there's like a different type of echo chamber going on, even though we're talking about the same subject. Yet, you know, those folks are uber popular and making a killing and a living off of just the same type of videos, and they probably got a team behind. They might be more professional to whatever degree, but yeah, not to compare and not to act like, oh, it's unfair. You know, we're not trying to be playing the victim card or whatever the fuck, but it's like sometimes we're wondering, like, you know, something's got to give, or, you know, like, how do we, you know, keep on keeping on and hopefully building up momentum, you know, that kind of shit.
I'm not a very good person to ask this to, because I don't have many inspiring words to say. The truth of the matter is, most people just want to hear what they want to hear. And you'll notice that, and this is true in any space, the people who are at the top, they're the ones who are just telling their audience what they want to hear. And I'm sure at least some of the big content creators believe what they say, but I'm pretty sure at least some of them don't. So whether you're in the alternative media space, or even in the mainstream media space, or whatever space, or the occult space, or whatever, if you're willing to say what you feel, even if it'll make some of your audience upset, the +1 that you get in integrity, it comes at a -10 in popularity. And that's part of the game, you know. And that's why people sometimes they'll do the opposite. They'll do the -1 integrity to get the +10 popularity. And like, I get the trade-off, but I'm so grateful that one of the first people that I that got me into social media marketing and things like that was Gary Vee, because something that Gary Vee, well, I don't know, he doesn't say this a lot, but he said it in at least a couple of his books that I read. You don't need a lot of followers, you need the right followers. And that is, oh, I guess that is kind of inspiring for someone who's small, because I'm small. That was kind of the inspiration of your rant. You know, TikTok is by far my biggest platform, and even then, I have like 2,400 people, which by TikTok standards is not a lot. Yeah, it's impressive. I'm really happy for it. I'm super grateful. I tried for years to grow my TikTok. The tarot stuff was the third iteration of me trying to launch a TikTok. And it took 3 generations of me doing shit to 0 people before I figured out, a lot of chicks like tarot readings. I guess I'll read tarot because I'm good at it. So yeah, what was I saying? Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, as long as the people that you follow are the right people, that's how I keep moving forward, because it's such a miracle that Mark Passio is as popular as he is, because not only does he tell it like it is, but he will actively tell people to fuck off if they don't like what he's saying. And the very people like the +1 integrity for -10 popularity, Mark Passio he's hitting the -10 popular. He's not hitting the +1 integrity. He's hitting on the -10 popularity card. Like, he's fucking hammering that button, and people still come. It's wild that he managed to get as big as he is, and stay true to himself. Yeah, that's really inspiring. And that's something that I hope to do eventually, but if we have time, you can only keep doing what you're doing, and hope for the best and get better and be open to feedback, because here's the thing: sometimes there's a reason no one's watching you, and that it is important to look at the drawing board and say, can I make my shit better? Why would someone stop scrolling for me? Why would someone click on my thumbnail? And to actually ask yourself those questions. But again, you need something, like, once they stop scrolling or click on your thumbnail, you need substance there to actually greet them and welcome them. And that's where, like, you as a person can, hopefully present yourself in an authentic way.
Yeah, all day. As if being the same person on camera is no different than, off camera, right? So, yeah, that's what's up. And I just, real talk, like Mark Passio, man, that was really, I love that analogy, which you mentioned, the +1 -10 type of shit, because that really is what it is. And I see a lot of these influencers ducking and shying away from some of these controversial stances that they don't want to stand on, because they're worried about losing their fucking followers. As if what matters the most to people, it seems, like, it's a shame that people are using the dollar to have more influence on them, and they're a quote unquote influencer. Holy shit, is that ironic or what?
Yeah. And we end up in situations where people are getting paid millions of dollars for videos that make 4,000 views, and somehow manage to frame themselves as being victims of it to their massive audiences. You probably know who I'm talking about. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, man. And I know, tarot's not the most widespread subject, and it doesn't matter, but I feel like it could be, and of course, when these things, like I mentioned, get more mainstream, it can be easily watered down and prostituted around like it ain't nobody's fucking business. except for ones trying to pimp it out and whatever the fuck, right? Unfortunately, but what I try to, and I've been, as far as since I've been keen to the tarot and actually like had my shit read by someone, I've been, throwing it out there like, hey, like if it's someone's birthday, a tarot reading is fucking a great idea. It's such a fucking awesome, or Christmas or whatever, right? Make it a double, do Easter too. Like fuck it.
Yeah. I really like that. And you something you said reminded me of something that I've thought for a while, because social media promotion and content creation is something that I'm quite familiar with. Also tarot, right? And my whole thing of just telling your audience what they want to hear. There is a tarot equivalent to that actually, because if I did love readings, I would be 10 times bigger than I am. If that, like the tarot audience, they eat love readings up. Oh, they eat it like it's going out of style. And something that maybe I'll do this experiment someday, or maybe I won't. But I once considered spending like a period of time or whatever where I would give tarot readings, and no matter what cards come up, the message is the person you have a crush on likes you too and will reach out soon. And if I made like 10 videos where no matter what the cards are, all I said was, yes, the person you have a crush on likes you and will reach out soon, I would have 1 million followers by now. But again, I'm just not willing to do that -1 integrity. But as an experiment, I'm really tempted to try to see, because that is the telling your audience what they want to hear specifically. And I have this is backed by experience. I've been doing a TikTok live stream once a week, which is not a lot, for an hour, which is ridiculously low. And even then, the random comments that I see, 90% of the comments are, will Brad reach out? Does Tony have feelings for me? Those are the questions that I see in my chat all the time.
Yeah, it's funny, and well, not that funny, because like my heart goes out to folks, looking for love and this and that, and it's interesting that people are really drawn to tarot for that specific thing, in a sense. Like, I need this confirmation, like
It's actually wild. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that, actually. That's interesting. Funny enough, my lady, the woman that I'm with right now, it was more of like an oracle type of drawing, but there was like at least like 12 points that were on point with the description of myself and my predicament at the time, that when she met me.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and honestly, like, these things really don't lie. If they're really read by the right person, and they've done their proper homework or whatever, or actually have references to draw from, whatever, and that the person receiving it is receptive, I guess, right, and open. I guess folks need to be open to a decent degree to actually get the messages.
Yeah.
How do you see that? It's a two-way street, kind of, with the reader.
Yes, and that's also I wouldn't waste my time arguing with skeptics. And if someone wants a reading from me with the attitude of, let's see if this is real, I won't read for that person. You better be good. You better make sure I don't catch on, because once I do, I'm saying, oh, I'm not the reader for you. You can go somewhere else.
Yeah, for like the $5-10 gypsies in the 7-story loft in the downtown. Yeah,
I'm sure they'll read for you.
Sure, yeah, and they'll probably get what they asked for, which is.
And it's funny. I used to look down on oracle cards, but they serve a different function. Shout out to Gordon White for making me realize that. He's been on a oracle card trip not that long ago, and it's tarot is great and all, but it's very haughty and toddy and esoteric, whereas oracle cards are more like the tarot guy next door type of vibe. Like, I'll tell you what it is. There's something very nitty gritty and down to earth about oracle cards, which is important to have too in your like occult practice, if you will.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you feel that way, and through your experience, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's for another topic. But as far as this one, kind of winding down, was there anything else you wanted to share or even declare while you're on the air? While we're in the season of Libra, which is an air element, right?
Yeah.
Get it balanced, man. No, just kidding.
I think we covered a lot. I can't think of anything. I'm still recuperating from forgetting Marianne Lenormand's name. But I'll make up for it just by living my life and helping people.
Fuck yeah, that's what's up, Sid. Yeah, appreciate that, and definitely want to have you on again, even in just like a French version of this. And like I mentioned prior, that I would love to have some kind of like roundtable of a bunch of cats, talking that tarot, because there's a lot to cover, discover, and yeah.
Yeah, totally. I would totally be back.
Cool, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. So
yeah, thanks again.
Likewise.
Sorry, you were gonna.
No, I was just gonna say, like, plug away at where folks can find you and all that good shit.
Oh yeah, I'm Sid. I'm real Sid Roc on most platforms. And I would say if you're interested in my tarot stuff, you could either follow me on TikTok at Real Sid Roc or on YouTube. I think it's Sid Roc Tarot on YouTube for my tarot channel. I also do political stuff on another channel, but that's not what we're talking about right now. And if you're interested in my politics, I'd refer you to my Twitter. That's where I'm have a great time trolling basically everyone I run into.
Right on. Did I get your handle correct?
Yes, it's spelled right. Thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. And yeah, it's really been a pleasure and really fruitful to have you on, man. Yeah, definitely. I'm grateful for this, and yeah, we'll be in touch soon enough. And take care out there, man.
Hey, thanks again for having me. I had a great time.
Right on. Cheers. Appreciate that.
I'm the sun shining, raw, self-approved judgment. I am renewed and improved. I am the world, Saturn, full bloom. The terror, found in my own mirror, straight and narrow path. My spine like an arrow to the sun. We rose up from the slums. Heroes journey on as heralds of the one. 78 minor and major tarot cards. 78. That be that Tubo King John. 78 organs in our body, now you catching on.